Once again, it's crunch time on Capitol Hill as lawmakers debate the fate of DACA and look for a way to keep the government open past a Friday midnight deadline. Senator Marco Rubio joins us now from Capitol Hill to discuss those and a lot of other issues. Thanks for joining us, Senator Rubio. Let's get right to it. The topic of the day is this immigration impasse once again. And for our viewers out there, are you more attuned to the current Durbin-Graham version of the immigration bill, or would it be closer to the Republicans who are called the more hard-line people like Tom Cotton or Senator Perdue?
Well, I don't know the details of the Graham-Durbin proposal other than what's been expressed in the media. I haven't seen those details. I can tell you what I believe in. I believe we do have to build a wall and improve our overall security, like at airports with entry, exit. I believe we should end the diversity lottery. I've been saying that for about 5 years. I believe that we should move toward a merit-based system of immigration. I believe that we should figure out a way, like the president has, to deal with people that find themselves, or many of the people that find themselves now under a DACA designation. And I think the big debate has been, how do you put all that together? And the way I view it is the president's #1 priority is border security. The Democrats are insisting on DACA. And so in order to get it passed under this sort of framework that we're in now, each side is going to have to get something. But what else gets in there is what the debate has been about. And so I support ending the diversity lottery. I think we should admit people to the United States based on what they're going to contribute to the United States. And that's why I've long called for a merit-based system of immigration, irrespective of what country you're coming from. It shouldn't be country-based, it should be person-based.
Absolutely. And Senator, back in 2015, you gave a speech, or I guess back and forth with Hannity at CPAC, and you said, I've learned my lesson on immigration. And your point was that we have to do enforcement first before we can get to the other parts, you said. And that was obviously because of the Gang of Eight. That went down in flames. But the Gang of Eight, now it's a Gang of Six. And you have Lindsey Graham out there, who today said we need different partners, willing partners in the White House. What of that? I mean, the White House is the White House. The president ran on the wall and enforcement, and he's willing to do DACA, too.
Well, just about anything we pass here, you're going to have him sign it. So that's the only partner at the end of the day that's going to matter, is what the president will sign. And by the way, the lesson I referred to in 2015 was more than just border security first. It was with a step-by-step approach versus a comprehensive one in which you try to do all these things together. It says, you're seeing now, you're only talking about 5 things and they can't put it together. So that's why I've long believed that you start with security first. That's something everybody should agree on. I don't know why anybody would argue that we shouldn't secure our border and enforce our immigration laws. And then you moved into modernization, which are things like making it merit-based or getting rid of the diversity lottery, basically going to a person-based immigration system as opposed to a country or family-based one.
Right, but Senator, I'm sorry to interrupt, but aren't they doing amnesty at the same time? Not everybody, but they are doing 800,000 at the same time. So they're kind of doing a smaller version of what you guys tried to do in 2013, and that obviously didn't work out well, and the president's still willing to give in this circumstance.
Well, that's the point. I mean, everybody involved in this negotiation is saying, we understand that we're going to deal with the DACA situation, but you've got to do strong enforcement that's going to happen. And one of the differences between now and 2013 is you have someone at the White House that people trust is actually going to do it. That's a big dynamic shift from where we stood at this time in 2013, arguing about whether or not the enforcement would even happen. Even if we passed a law, people would argue that it wouldn't happen. So that's a difference.
Are you for the aunts and uncles and all of that to come in?
No. So I think keeping the nuclear family is one thing. I think allowing people to claim their parents or other relatives is not something that I'd support. And to me, that's part of moving away from the family-based system and towards the merit-based system.
Let's talk about what Jeff Flake is saying tomorrow. Another one of your colleagues. We've got a lot of charges. First, Trump's a racist, which I assume you don't agree with. That's what Durbin is saying. You don't agree with that, right?
I've never seen him say or do anything in front of me that leads me to believe that. But people have a right to have whatever opinion they want, but I certainly have never viewed him that way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you sit down in a room with someone one day and 2 days later say, well, he's a racist. But now Jeff Flake is giving a speech tomorrow where he's comparing Trump's treatment of the press to Joseph Stalin's. And of course, Stalin, the Great Purge, 20 million to 60 million deaths attributed to him. How do we get here, Senator?
Well, I think, look, I don't agree with everything the president does. I bet you don't agree with everything the president does. But one of the things that is happening is exaggeration. And just like the president does things from time to time that I don't agree with or would have done differently, I think the reaction to it is often very exaggerated. I haven't given the speech yet, so we'll see what he says tomorrow. But I don't think there's any comparison, not just between this president, but any American public figure with Joseph Stalin. But again, I don't know if that's what he's going to say in a speech. I mean, he hasn't given it yet.
Yeah, well, he's teased it. Let's talk about what you want to do to prevent foreign governments from interfering in American elections. You're teaming up with Chris Van Hollen, a Democrat, and what is your goal and what do you intend to do? So
there's clearly a Russia element to it because there's no doubt the Russians tried to interfere in our election. By the way, in my view, not simply to favor a candidate. That may have been what they felt like at the end, but for much of it, it was just to sow discord. But my bigger problem, we can't do about, we can only deal with what's happened in the past prospectively, or looking back retroactively, but prospectively, the biggest threat to America's electoral system, and quite frankly, America at large, is not Russia. It's China. China's has basically infiltrated its way into all of our technologies across the supply chain. They make anything the Russians can do look like child's play, and that includes stealing secrets, that includes influencing individuals in American government through a lot of different methods, and that includes potentially interfering in an election. So I think the biggest threat moving forward is not the Russians, it's actually the Chinese. They are much larger with a lot more capability and a lot more money, and that's one of the things I thought about when getting involved in this legislation.
And any thoughts about this New York Times piece that just came out tonight that the administration is going to be reviewing possible plans to expand our military response with nuclear weapons to potential cyber attacks on water, communications, other essential services that would basically shut down the power grid, et cetera?
Yeah. So I promise you that there's going to be overreaction to that as well. Some of the same things I told you, exaggeration. You'll see headlines that say Trump wants nuclear attack because of hacking. That's not what this is about. By the way, this doctrine is actually not new. It's just been expanded and now, of course, been made public. The bigger thing about this is you talking about some of these attacks. We're talking about things that would knock planes out of the sky, kill patients in hospitals, wipe out millions of dollars from bank accounts, paralyze our electric grid. I mean, I'm talking about massive loss of life if the kinds of attacks that are being tried to anticipate it here are the attacks that happen. People need to know ahead of time, if you do this, we're not going to have a series of town hall meetings to talk about why did this happen. This is what the response is going to be. Countries know what the response is going to be if they launch a nuclear attack against us. They need to know what that response is going to be if they launch a massive, life-threatening cyber or irregular attack, as I think a lot of countries that may not have a nuclear capability or may have a small nuclear capability have the ability to expand into this territory if we don't do a better job of protecting ourselves.
Senator Rubio, thanks so much for spending some time with us tonight. Hope to see you soon.
Thanks.